Well, now that we have your attention, I hope, which is part of the point, welcome back as part of NBC's special focus on the climate and crisis. We're going to take a look today at how the smallest state in the country is leading one of the biggest fights on the issue of who pays for this climate change issue. Rhode Island is suing 21 oil and gas companies for damages related to climate change. You know the names: Chevron, Shell, Exxon, BP, all of them are included in this lawsuit. Now, the lawsuit claims that not only did those companies contribute to climate change, which has eroded infrastructure and the damaged portions of the local environment, but that it did it knowing about the climate change risks, and they did it anyway. And that is the crux of Rhode Island's public nuisance legal argument. You can call it a first-of-its-kind lawsuit filed by a state. And earlier this summer, a federal judge decided the case should stay in the state court, which of course dealt a blow to the big oil companies, which thought the federal courts would be a bit friendlier to them. I'm joined now by Rhode Island Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. He's a champion and I've been championing fights like this to deal with climate change. And he was a former attorney general of the state, so he knows a lot about how these lawsuits work. Senator, welcome to the show. I'm glad we're going to take a few minutes to talk about this. But
Thank you, Chuck. Good to be with you.
Before I hit climate, a couple other quick questions of the day. One has to do with Iran. Are you more confident today in the United States government claims of Iran's culpability in the Saudi attack?
No, I think that's still being looked into.
What is it that we need to know more of that we don't? What are you waiting to hear from? Who are you waiting to hear from before you're confident Iran is the culprit?
Well, I think what the administration needs to do is to put together a presentation that they can make, for instance, to the UN to draw international condemnation to Iran if they are, in fact, behind this. So things like figuring out what the launch site is, figuring out exactly what the piece of equipment was, tracing where the piece of equipment came from. There's a lot of work that we are told still needs to be done.
All right, let me move to, and very quickly on that, do you think you're going to get those answers in a timely manner? Are you confident of that, or are you nervous you're not?
I'm sure I think the military and the intelligence agencies are going to very much want to figure that out, and that they'll share that information as it comes in.
Gotcha. I just wanted to get from your tone whether you were a little leery of what you were hearing, or you're simply waiting for the facts to come to be surfaced. And it sounds like you're exactly. Let me talk about this. The public nuisance lawsuits. Why do you believe this is an effective way to move forward in the battle to basically figure out, A, how to combat climate change, and most importantly, how do we pay for it?
Well, at the very get-go, the most important thing about lawsuits on climate is they require the defendants, the oil industry, to at some point turn up and tell the truth in depositions under oath, and ultimately perhaps in trial testimony. And they're not very comfortable telling the truth. They much prefer talking in legislative arenas and in regulatory arenas where they can spin things and make stuff up. Certainly they lie through their teeth in the public arena and here in Congress. So getting them in a situation where they're under oath is important. Also, being able to get into their files is important. Discovery matters because they will have said things to each other and internally that rebut their public statements. And many is the case that has been settled once really bad internal emails turn up. So discovery and truth-telling are really important. Right. The public nuisance doctrine is also really important because it is designed to address things like this. It's been around for centuries. Right. And the Supreme Court has specifically said that this is state business. So it would be hard for the Supreme Court, even the Roberts Court, to go in and stomp on a state public nuisance victory.
You know, it's interesting. Oklahoma, I believe, the opioids lawsuit is sort of a similar. It's a similar case against the pharmaceutical companies.
Correct.
It's a similar law that they're doing there. Yeah.
There was a big lead paint public nuisance case in California that was upheld in a very thorough decision by the California Supreme Court. That probably is a better roadmap for this case than the Oklahoma one, but together they provide quite a good roadmap, particularly to the extent that the public nuisance looks at the misleading and false behavior of the industry, not just the harm.
Is there any reason that would make this case better if you had other states join it, or is it better to be state by state this way?
I think it helps when you have other states join to the extent that the strategy of the adversaries is to do the defense blizzard strategy and just try to blow you out and file so many papers and bomb you with so much discovery that you get overwhelmed. It's good to be able to share the work. But I think that it's important to proceed. You know, California has set, I think, a reasonably good example on lead paint. And it wouldn't surprise me if over time other states joined in and we were able to share the load a little bit better.
Well, speaking of sharing the load, part of the, I think, challenge for states in dealing with the climate issue, in dealing with climate mitigation, is the last time I checked, Mother Nature doesn't respect state lines. They don't respect nation borders, right? And I guess at what point does the state of Rhode Island say there's only so much we can do, and if the federal government doesn't do this, you know what? I guess we have to sue the federal government.
Well, there are people who are suing the federal government already. There's the Juliana case taking place out in Oregon, which is kind of the test case for that. Now, it's not brought by a state. It's brought by individual plaintiffs. But I think that's the case there. A state has particularly strong standing to deal with public nuisance because there's a big body of law that says that public officials representing the public, representing a state, have particular standing to pursue public nuisance claims. So I think the state of Rhode Island has done the right thing to pursue the miscreants, pursue the misbehaving fossil fuel industry folks, and to do so using public nuisance theory. Doesn't mean that you can't have a backstop argument involving the federal government, but I think they're in the stronger lane legally by doing it the way they did.
Do we look at this like the tobacco cases and assume that the money that comes from this, so this essentially short circuits the argument of the carbon tax, doesn't it? Let's not worry about a carbon tax for now, because you might get the oil company. No? Okay, go ahead.
Not really. There's not enough money in these companies to make up what a carbon tax would do to shift the economy towards green energy. This is much more about trying to make sure that the people who did the evil deeds are the ones who are paying for repairing the harms, rebuilding the highways, paying people who've lost property, businesses that have lost their shorefront businesses, to make sure that the people who are being harmed by what the oil companies did are being compensated by the oil companies. But in terms of this being a thing that shifts the economy towards a green energy economy and solves the climate problem writ large, I think it's hard to expect Rhode Island's little suit to do that.
One other piece of business on your day job as a United States Senator. Day job's not the right word. On some of your duties as a senator. You tweeted, "I'm confident Kavanaugh lied. He was under oath. His intent was to deceive. The lies were material. That's perjury." But you have not called for the impeachment. What do you do? What do you do about Kavanaugh?
I think the important first step, I'm a prosecutor, right? So you think about starting your investigation, gathering your evidence, and you don't go to a jury with an ask for a verdict until you've done all your homework leading up to that. And to me, the opening bid is to have the House Judiciary Committee, because the Senate Judiciary Committee won't do it, look at the FBI investigation of the sexual misconduct allegations against Kavanaugh. I think what you'll find is if you put that investigation next to a real FBI investigation, the differences are numerous, and I think the key is likely to be the so-called tip line that the investigators ran for effectively for the White House in the Kavanaugh investigation. But I don't think they did a real tip line. I don't think they looked at what came in. I don't think they ever followed up on a lead. And in my experience, it was a very weird thing as a former United States attorney to watch the FBI affirmatively turning away and deflecting and repelling information. The FBI is a machine for the collection of information. And to see them fending it off was weird.
Well, we will find out what the House Judiciary Committee will do if they will open an investigation. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, as always, sir, thanks for coming on and sharing your views. I always
Good to be with
appreciate
you.
it. Hello, YouTubers. If you're watching this, it means you've checked out our channel, so thank you. Now do me a favor, subscribe by clicking on that button down there. Click on any of the videos to watch the latest interviews and highlights from MTP Daily and MSNBC. You can get more Meet the Press content every morning in the First Read newsletter. If you're tired of content that you don't know anything about where it came from, you don't have to have that problem with us. NBC News, MSNBC, MTP, and the Meet the Press mindset right here for you on YouTube. Subscribe now.